This is Ed, and the scene behind me is from uh, a home that we have in Palm Desert, California, and this was taken last winter. And the picture I took is my deck, and that's a part of a championship golf course behind me there. Palm Valley Country Club is the place, and that mountain is 10,000 feet. It's up right behind city of Palm Springs, the downtown village, which is about 20 miles from where I was sitting at the time. And this is just a picture, of course. So we're telling stories today, right? And so I can always talk about this place. I really love it. I'm actually in downtown San Diego in Seaport Village, which is about 160 miles south of where that picture was taken. And around 8.5 miles north of Tijuana, Mexican border, and around 100 yards to the ocean right here. So, Rigo, you're at 7,000 feet, is that right?
Yeah, probably a little bit more as I live in the surroundings where there are a lot of mountains. Yeah, perhaps. I don't know in feet. I'm not very familiar with, but in
Yeah,
kilometers, it's almost 3,000 high. Yeah.
yeah, okay. So that's about 5/8 of a mile, if I remember correctly. So if somebody can do the math better than me, faster. So, and you're at sea level, Andrew?
I believe so. I'm a little bit away from the ocean, so we're slightly elevated in the area that I'm in, which is great because it rains a lot here. But yeah, we're at sea level, I'd say.
Oh, great. Okay, so this talk show today is about storytelling. And I very much would like to welcome whoever is coming in right now. I think it's my friend Dave. We'll see. Uh, oh, and Christian. Hello. Can you hear?
He's on mute.
Yeah?
Hi,
He's on
Rico.
mute.
How are you?
Hey,
Hey, Christian.
So Christian, meet my friend Andrew Woods. He's in British Columbia, Vancouver, and
Hi.
my friend Christian is in Southern California.
Can you
Uh,
hear me
it-
okay?
yes,
Okay, good, good.
yeah, I see you're shaking the phone.
Try to
You're
try
making
to
me
amend
sick.
that
Wait.
here.
All right, great. Okay, so thank you for joining. We're going to be joined by a couple of others, and but we will begin now in earnest. This is about storytelling, and I wanted very much to introduce you to Dr. Andrew Woods. Uh, Andrew, why don't you explain what you're a doctor of and how you decided to do that, and the fact that you are embarking on a journey to get another degree.
Yeah. It was interesting. I was working in China and I was working in a university there, and there was a lot of I've owned multiple businesses, some of them very successful, some of them very unsuccessful. And I was teaching, entrepreneurship, but I was working with a lot of PhDs. And, I don't mean any disrespect, but the PhDs didn't have any actual practical experience. They'd never run businesses, but they were continuously talking down to me as if I didn't know
Mm.
what was going on in the business world. And it became almost like a conflict. So it was out of necessity to survive and just to say, "Oh, I got one too." I don't want to make light of the journey. It was fantastic. It was amazingly, it was incredible, but it was very difficult. But I felt that there's a big disconnect in academia or in education in general between those that have the book smarts and those that have actually done it. And it's rare to have the combination of the two. So I wanted to try and be the combination of the two. So I got myself a doctorate of management studying entrepreneurship in China. So I was living in Shanghai, China, and I was investigating the management styles that were taking place in the technology space within a small group of companies, and comparing and contrasting that to North American or Western styles of management, if you will. So it was really fascinating time to be in China. They were seeing double-digit growth. You know, and it was just everything was booming. It was the time of endless opportunity. So it was just great to be there. Oh, and the second one was I'm very fascinated by artificial intelligence, and I use it a lot in my organization. So I wanted to study that. So I'm doing a doctorate in business administration, looking at artificial intelligence and implementing it into organizations. Of course, I need to narrow that down a bit, but
Yeah, now great. Now
Fascinating.
you are teaching right now or in more than one place, if or am I confused about that?
yeah, no, you're not, Ed. I teach at I teach on the MBA program at a school called University Canada West, which is it's primarily international students. It's about it's on their MBA program. I teach small business management, which is great because there's students from all over the world, so they have different perspectives. And then I teach at another school, a local school here called British Columbia Institute of Technology, and I also teach small business development, how to start your business, grow it, expand it, get capital, etc.
Oh, God, it's so exciting to hear you talk about all this stuff. And so, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about your background? And what's fascinating to me is the fact that you lived in Hong Kong and Shanghai. Uh, Shanghai. I'm saying that incorrectly, aren't I?
Shanghai's fine.
Yeah. Okay. And you did some work for supermarket chain, right?
Yeah, I mean, what was interesting about living in China, like I said, it was a land of opportunity at the time, and I mean, it's the economy slowed down, but everything was possible. So, I mean, my MBA classmates invited me over. I was living in the UK actually, and my MBA classmates invited me over to their advertising company, and they were very wealthy people, but they were quite cheap, so they were always trying to cut corners. And like, if you can imagine, this face became the model of several companies. So they took my photographs for Hyundai, for Haagen-Dazs, for their ad campaigns. You know, so it was just a fantastic, just anything was possible. You know, we were working with Premier League clubs, football clubs, involvement in Olympic activities, and just everything was possible. It was a time of great opportunity. But yeah, I mean, when I saw storytelling and or reinventing yourself, I thought this is one I got to get involved in because there's been so many changes that either I've initiated or life has initiated for me that have sent me in different directions. Yes, I was working. My wife's family owns a chain of 150 plus supermarkets across Zhejiang province, which is one province below Shanghai. And I was helping North American companies. I was also running a training business involved with advertising. It's just everything was possible. Very hard to explain when people look at your resume, so you have to dumb that down. But yeah, there's a lot of things going on.
Well, I have to tell the audience that I was a guest of yours in a book that you wrote a couple of years
Yes.
ago called The Audacious Ask, and it's about entrepreneurs, right? Yeah, so
You certainly were.
I was, and I'm still trying to play at it, but it's getting a little tricky. So I'm still doing this. So do you want to hold up that front cover or show a slide? I know you have a slide of the new book, but not of Audacious, right?
Let me, am I able to share here?
Yeah, I have my screen share open.
Okay. So I guess you folks might want to talk about something else while I'm trying to figure out the technology here.
Listen, I'm sorry I cannot help you.
Okay, so let's
Yeah, just you got to click on it, I guess.
yeah, let's see what we can do here.
Okay, audience, Tweedledum, Tweedledee.
And maybe you want to steer the conversation in another direction here.
So we're welcomed in the background to my friend Dave. Hello, Dave. Welcome to the show. You're welcome to join us on camera if you wish, or if you'd like to say hello. I guess not. Okay. All right. Oh, Ask Us Consulting.
Oh,
Yeah.
so you're seeing something. That's great, isn't it?
Right. Right.
Okay.
So that's the name of your consulting company now.
It is. It is. It is.
Yeah.
So it's the soft skills training. I think, you know, EQ, sales, negotiations, creating legendary customer service. Had the opportunity to train and develop people in 22 countries. I had a little snapshot of some of the some of the different locations. That's a whole other piece, the cultural mistakes that were made in some of these places, a bit of fun, which I was talking about on the weekend with a group of CPAs. But yeah, so what did you want me to show? You wanted me to show
Yeah, the front cover of Audacious Ask, but you could show anything you want. Oh, there it
okay,
is. Okay.
there you
So
go.
the Audacious Ask is what it takes for an entrepreneur to succeed, because you got to ask for the money.
It's stepping out of your comfort zone and asking for everything. So it started with a friend of mine, Tori Witchar, who wrote this, was a co-author on this book. We found that a lot of our international students were very timid about pushing the boundaries and asking for things. You know, I would say to them, send a resume, staple a Starbucks gift card to it, and you know they're going to read it. You know, do things to step out of your comfort zone. So we got them kind of going on missions and asking for discounts and asking for things. And then Tori and I were discussing it. We're saying, I wonder how entrepreneurs that were really made it took this to heart and kind of made audacious asks to make themselves stand out, you know, because what's the worst that can happen, right? There's yes, which is fabulous, no, which is outright rejection, which who cares, or a counter offer. You know, they might come up with a different solution for you. So we tested this by asking ourselves. I would contact people. So I would watch the Shark Tank, for example, the North American version of Shark Tank, and I would reach out to contestants, people who had pitched their ideas. You know, great pitch. Can you be part of this book? And you know, out of the 20 people I asked, 20 people replied. Some of them put me on hold, but other ones agreed right away. And then we probe deeper and ask them questions about when they kind of stepped out of their comfort zone to make themselves stand out. And some of the answers were fascinating.
Yeah. So, you know, frankly, I haven't looked at what I talked about at that
Well,
time.
you should. You're in it.
I know, but I need to. Um, I have to tell you, even at this late stage uh, of being an entrepreneur, I have gone through, I don't know whether it's an imposter syndrome thing or some kind of a block. I've been sort of afraid. Can you believe I'm saying these words? I've been sort
Good.
of wary about asking people for money to participate in this talk show, for instance, not necessarily to an entrance fee, but to advertise their brand, because we have viewers who will see this in China, in Japan, in Australia, in Guam, Mexico, and everywhere else because of the free access I've built. And it's a great way to connect with people who ordinarily would never get the chance. Anyway, I've overcome that fear, and the past 2 or 3 days, I've been working feverishly asking for money. I'll keep you posted.
Great. I think Ed, you know, entrepreneurship is strange because you have ups and downs, and it's like sales. You know, if you're on a roll, everything's going great, you get more confidence and you keep going and you keep pushing. And when things start to slip, so very quickly, I'll give you an example. When I was living in China, 2019, I had close to 200 training events booked for 2020. And then 2020 came and we all know what happened. So within a space of 3 weeks, I lost all of my customers. Looked over at my wife and said, maybe it's time to go back home. You know, I'm getting a little older. I thought maybe, you know, pensions and establishing myself back home, because I didn't want to stay in China and kind of grow old there in a foreign country with rules that were a bit strange. But anyway, sorry. Coming back here, I just took some teaching jobs and I was very lacking in confidence about relaunching the business. And then a couple of small wins came in, and then I said, no, you're an entrepreneur, you're not a teacher. You like teaching, you can still do it, but push it. And then the confidence started to come back again. So I kind of know that feeling of, you know, I don't know if it's imposter syndrome, as you mentioned, but it's more like, well, it's so hard, and do I really want to fight this fight again? But the fighting and the is the beauty of it, you know, of entrepreneurship, that constant battle, that change, everything's different. And you wind up reaping what you put into it, you know. So So, I mean, I think the confidence comes back, right? I mean, you'll wind up getting a couple of wins on the board, and then you'll be out there hustling like crazy again. It's just in the blood, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just I've had it on simmer, but now I'm boiling.
Excellent.
Let's go to the next slide.
Oh, okay.
Okay, now this is the new book, which is
Yeah.
very, very apropos. So why don't you tell us, I'll guess the why you did it, but this sounds really technical.
It's not technical at all. It's the idea that, I mean, you can't escape artificial intelligence, and it's already here, and it's already much more advanced than the average person understands. And I believe that the sort of the left brain skills, logical, sequential, analytical skills that people have, your accountants, your lawyers, a lot of these things can be replicated or bettered by the use of artificial intelligence. So the things that artificial intelligence can't do and probably won't be able to do in the foreseeable future is, EQ, empathy. You've missed your airplane somewhere, and you don't want someone talking down to you and telling you it's your fault. You want, which an AI might do if programmed improperly. You need that kind of human touch. So the message is to enhance your human skills if you want to be competitive going forward. So 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, your parents maybe would push you, and this is the same in China and other places around the world I've lived, that the people would push you into left brain activities. I want my son or daughter to be an accountant, a project manager, a lawyer, an architect. And now it's more, there's a lot more need for creativity, designers that are really good. So I think that if you sharpen your soft skills in this period, which almost all of us need to do anyway, but if you sharpen your soft skills, you'll become more competitive in this new landscape. And it's a bit of fun, and we wrote it with some of it we wrote with the GPT that we created. So we created a GPT and dumped in everything we could find about soft skills and case studies that my own business has done, etc. And it spat out the answers. So it was a lot of fun kind of using technology to advance the message as well. But we clearly point out the parts that are written with the GPT and the parts that are ours, so that we don't get ourselves in trouble and people, understand what we're doing.
So a case like this is knowing what to ask AI to do, the prompting.
The prompts, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So how did you stumble around in that, or did you have it all linear?
No, it's just, it's just been teaching myself as I've been using it. I've been teaching I've been reading about it and reading advice from people, but I've been teaching myself and analyzing what prompt created what kind of response. And it really is, it's such a wonderful tool. I tell my students all the time, I'll whack their essays occasionally into the AI checker, and it'll come back, 80% AI usage. And I pull them aside and they say, AI is your friend. It can come up with the ideas, but you need that human touch. You need to make it so that's not, humanize it, take away all that robotic language. Whenever I see in papers, fostering, the word fostering used multiple times, who speaks like that? Or a conclusion that starts with in conclusion, right away I whack it into an AI checker, but AI can be your friend, and it can come up with so many amazing concepts, but it still needs to be checked and double checked. And as you said earlier, the prompts used to get the true value out of it.
Okay, I want to introduce you to Christian. You're doing some prompting things, aren't you, Christian?
Yes, I am. And so it's nice to meet you, Andrew. And it's fascinating what you're talking about. I'm actually through Ed's show, I got into AI, which I didn't really know a whole lot about. I met a guest, Melissa Poots, who had an AI project that was offered to her that she didn't want. And I fulfilled the requirements for it, which was to have a master's in something. And it was, in my case, it's linguistics. So for the last few months, I've been employed as a contractor with a leading AI company, and I've learned to break the board, as I call it, to write prompts so that AI would stumble. And I'm actually right now working on something that's hilarious, which is to make AI make up something. I'm asking AI to summarize a book that I know doesn't exist.
Okay, interesting.
And it's fascinating. If you feed it the right details, it takes those details and then starts hallucinating with those details. So yeah, I completely agree with what you said about the left brain. Just yesterday we heard from the leader of the team that AI is very good at math. That's exactly what you just said. And what I'm getting out of it for my own life and what I talk about is critical thinking is something that we need to severely focus on in
Agreed.
our educational system, because yes, you will have people that produce essays using AI. My kids are both aware of that and have classmates that do that. But more importantly to me is teaching somebody to recognize AI when they read something. And it's language, but there's also, I compare it to food. There's a certain blandness.
Yeah.
It's almost like the food is there, it's physically there, and you could eat it. It's not inedible, but it doesn't taste like anything. And I find that quite a lot, that when AI starts imagining things, they're not detailed because they're imagined, right? And they sound, at first reading, they sound kind of reasonable. They sound sometimes even smart. But then you think about, what does this actually say? What does this actually mean? And the answer is nothing. It's bland. It's tasteless in that sense, not in the sense of bad taste, but it doesn't taste like anything.
Well, this is a linguistic dialogue. I love it. It's great.
Well, I look at it, of course, I look at it through, my lens, which is like being trained in linguistics, right? When I do this, which has nothing to do with my actual career in mobility, which is another thing I really like about it. I'm going back to my roots, so to speak.
Interesting. Rigoberto, how does this conversation strike you?
Well, there's a lot of things to learn from, certainly from Andrew and his book. But yeah, I think I do like the topic. I don't know many things about programming or computing, but just remembering what Andrew said in terms of, at least looking for a job. I do remember that about 20 years ago, the first job that I got, it was just by calling directly to HR. The phone was available on the web page, and you have all resources by going to the office of the company and meet directly HR without any filter. That was the methodology 20 years ago. And now you have a chatbot perhaps on AI as a first filter, and perhaps I don't know if it's the right way to say that the AI will decide if you go to the next filter or not, or if you go with humans. But just we're talking about 20 years ago, and it's like, wow, it has developed a lot. So yeah, I'm very interested in Andrew, and perhaps looking forward to read your book, mainly the last one.
I need to let you know, which I didn't say, this book comes out in January, so it's not available yet, but it's on the way.
Super.
Yeah, that's great. So your subheadline here, soft skills, or the major headline, soft skills in the age of AI. So go be a little bit, explain a little bit to people like me who can't get words out of my mouth. What am I saying here?
So as I mentioned earlier, I mean, we're in a world where we're kind of transitioning from. There's a great book written about 15 years ago by Daniel Pink, who some of you may know, has written several interesting books, and it was A Whole New Mind, I believe it was called, and it was this whole idea, and he was kind of ahead of his time because all AI was up there, but we didn't understand it. It wasn't in the mainstream conversation. And what Pink was saying was that, in the age of artificial intelligence, so automation, the rise of Asia, the rise of abundance, You know, the idea was that the right brainers will rule the world. So the creatives, the people that have sort of people skills. So these people skills or soft skills would be, as I mentioned, they'd be like, you know, how to engage with people, how to make meaningful conversations, how to make powerful presentations and articulate your ideas, how to have empathy, how to use emotional intelligence. So these are things that AI will just not be able to replicate. Now, I can't say that 50 years from now, there might be robots that have feelings, and I mean, this is dangerous, but there might be robots that have feelings and make decisions, and you know, we don't know that. But where we are now, these skills, all of your, you know, I was speaking with accountants the other day, and they were all worried because they were saying, well, all of our data entry jobs, all of our entry, like beginner jobs, getting started in the trade, data entry, bookkeeping, all can be outsourced to, you know, done through QuickBooks or done through, you know, you can just scan your receipts and they'll go automatically into spreadsheets and do the calculations. All of these things can be done by AI now, but it doesn't have the ability to replicate human emotion, such as empathy, emotional intelligence, as I say. So those skills are the ones we need to work on if we're going to propel ourselves, keep ourselves going and make ourselves relevant in this new age.
Fascinating. Dave, if you would like to jump in and ask a question or use the chat, either way, I welcome you to become visible and let me introduce you. And if not, that's okay. So this is all about storytelling, and I welcome you, Rigoberto, to tell us about your endeavor right now. You're building a new business while also interviewing. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm doing both. Not really building a new business, just working as a freelance for the first time in my life. So it's a new chapter after almost 20 years of working for companies. Parallel, yeah, looking for jobs and learning this new way of being filtered by AI. So yeah, it's certainly a new stage in my life, but this is what I'm doing now.
Yeah, that's great. And what kind of a position are you interviewing for or striving for?
Yeah, well, I'm planning to go back to global mobility,
Mhm.
but you know, perhaps I was thinking in you know, I have been involved in client services manager and director during many years, but perhaps this position will be absorbed at some point by AI. I have seen many, let's say, posts about that. So I think global mobility in operations or in sales is like a better way to come back and work for a company.
Interesting. Okay. So Christian, what's new and exciting with you?
So I'm just like Rigoberto, and thank you, Rigo, for all the help that you've provided in the last few days. I'm also looking for the next thing, and right now I'm looking at entrepreneurship as well, kind of for the first time since college, I guess, when I had several part-time jobs. And yeah, I want to stay in the field of global mobility. I made that decision. But the question now is, where are my skills and where is my knowledge of use and can be monetized? And that's what I'm working on. But like I said, at the same time, I'm working on these AI projects because I'm being compensated for those. And it's very interesting to learn how it works, which I really didn't know 6 months ago.
Fascinating. So Andrew, is there another slide you would like to show?
Apparently not. Well, let me go back one, right? Because you just mentioned entrepreneurship. Let's see if we can get this up again. You just mentioned entrepreneurship, and I found this piece. I was looking through some old presentations. My wife had come back from China where I had my I don't even know what you call them. It was like one of those giant data drive USBs that had all my training from over the years. And I found this article. This article appeared in the Times, which is the sort of national newspaper of the UK. And it was about my first business, which was a training business as well. And talks about young. They called me young then, and I guess I was in the year 2000. But talking about a young North American's bid to make Britain more customer friendly. So when I arrived in the UK, I'd been living in Ireland, and then I had a great job in Italy for a while, working for Guinness Italia. Worked my way back through Europe. I was a chef by trade in my early career. Worked my way back through Europe doing what are called stages. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but
Yeah.
you show up at a restaurant. You say, "Hey, I'm here. I want to learn under your chef," and usually they feed you. They might give you accommodation. I guess in this day and age, it's probably a bit more dangerous now. Maybe less people are interested in doing this. But anyway, I learned the trade, got to the UK, and just was overwhelmed at how bad the customer service was. So I set up a training business, and that business evolved over 7 years to, do all kinds of other soft skills. So it's kind of like this entrepreneurial journey that has never really stopped. It has a couple of roadblocks every now and then and a couple of transitions, but here we are 25 years later, and I'm back in the soft skills training business, going back to the UK in January to deliver a series of creating legendary customer service workshops for the hospitality industry. So it kind of is gone all the way around again. But as far as entrepreneurship, I would have thought that Ed and I scared you off with our talk of sales going up and then sales going down and the ups and downs of it. But if you're into it, it's a beautiful lifestyle.
Yeah, it's getting to be really busy for me. There was a
Right?
period of time when so slow, God, it's excruciating,
I
and
know.
what am I doing wrong? But not to get weird here, but the role of self-inspection and even prayer created a pathway. And that combined with physical exercise on a daily basis and some weightlifting and swimming that I'd done, it created a pathway. And I don't know why I couldn't think of certain things, but I suddenly could. And
Wonderful.
and then that led to uh, 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 it was after COVID, because I started this in March of 20, and it took off like a rocket, uh, and then petered out, and then I reinvented my head, about what am I doing and what am I called and what do I want to be involved with, and it led to what we're doing right now, which is far more conversational, far more relaxed, less structure, unscripted, as you could tell, audience, but also stimulating. And we're not going to be boring, promise. So, Andrew, I remember when you came to Seattle. Well, you did that a couple of times, but one time we had this huge audience. I
Yeah, it's
part
great.
I partnered with this HR leader at the time, and she brought all her contacts and friends, and we filled up this amphitheater.
Yeah, it was
and
great.
and you and I remember, so there was an audience like in a movie theater or a Broadway play, and then there was a stage, and you jumped from the floor up onto the stage. It's like you're a kangaroo. It was just like whoop, and you made it, and you didn't fall, and the audience
Certainly.
just loved it.
Yeah. I think Seattle had just won the Super Bowl, right? And I remember that this was completely unscripted. But whenever you make a presentation, and it's a good thing, not a bad thing, you just have a bit of nerves. I looked at the guest list and it was quite senior, and maybe I had a bit of imposter syndrome because I'd been living in China for a while. And I thought, what are these? I kept saying to myself, what are these high-ranking people in the field of HR want to learn from me? So I had the old bum, 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 going in the chest. And then I thought about it again, and I thought, well, hang on, I'm talking about my life in China, so I'm a global expert about my own life. So so this is not a problem. So came out, and I remember coming out and saying, because I had lived in Vancouver years ago and used to visit Seattle, I said, I used to come and watch the Seahawks play. And then it clicked in my mind. They only won the Super Bowl 2 weeks earlier. And I said, congratulations, by the way. And then they all broke out into applause. And then I thought, hey, these guys are my friends. And then it went from all the jokes clicking and everything working. And it usually works out, you know. Great audience. That was fun. I remember that event well. I mean, I've spoken at many since, but I really remember that event well.
That was a milestone for for me. I think there were like 300 people there. So it was huge. Anyway, I'm going to bring this to a close in the next few minutes. But before I do that, I'd like you to take down that slide, please, so we can all be seen by the audience and as we depart. So the concept here, as we bring this to a close, is to want you to, all of you, to come back and let's do this again before the end of the year, sort of like a progress. I'm fortunate to be able to produce a live in-person meeting that will also have a digital or virtual component to it, and that's going to be in New York City, inside the U.S. headquarters of the bank, HSBC. Honored that HSBC has hosted and facilitated my London meetings 3 times already, and there'll be a 4th time coming up this spring. I think it'll be in April.
Great.
And that'll be announced once we finalize it. But definitely the U.S. headquarters of HSBC is hosting me for the first time at my event, which is going to be called it's a global HR event, which means it's HR related, people management, everything to do with talent, but on a global basis. So the global HR communicating with stakeholders to create a psychologically safe workplace environment, not only for expats, but for everybody, but with a particular focus on expats. And instrumentally, going down this path, focusing in on the dilemma caused by a dual career situation, where high-powered a marriage or a partnership is severely impacted by one of the people getting the job, and it meant going overseas. And then the other one lost sense of self, lost a career, lost contacts, and it creates a mess and could endanger a multi-million-dollar loss for the corporation. So the concept here, and this is not my own idea, this is a collaboration with a business psychologist based in London and a New York area psychologist and some legal people and mobility experts who have experience or some experience dealing with this dilemma of dual career and how it could wreck a marriage, never mind wreck a business and wreck a life. Christian, you have experience with this to some extent, don't you?
Yeah, from moving people and often couples and families within the United States and all over the world. And when you said high-powered, yes, that is definitely interesting. But what I found is a lot of the so-called high-powered couples, the trailing spouse has another often self-employed activity that they can do. I've moved some people who wrote books, for instance. What is even more critical is people who are not high-powered. When you have somebody who's maybe a director level, not middle management, but right above that, and a spouse with a normal, regular, office job, nothing fancy, nothing where they can just start their own business necessarily. And the financial impact is far more severe. That's where the rubber meets the road for me, overcoming that. And I mean, we all know that it's not necessarily the rank of a person or their pay grade that makes them important to a company. They could be a keeper of very valuable information, or a gatekeeper to other people. And when you move a person like that with a family like that, that's when it can become very, very risky to the company, because these people aren't necessarily high powered on paper, but for the business they really are.
So the issue then is if one of them is an introvert, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
and the other one is not. Okay, and so there's like a war that breaks out emotionally, if not physically. Rigo, do you have experience dealing with this when you were more involved with mobility in Mexico?
Yeah. Even with the last company that I worked for, Pinkerton, they were providing support in security. So security is a very sensible topic, and yeah, I mean, just by the fact of bringing people to Mexico and having perhaps some biases about the insecurity issues here. So it was definitely, the let's say the importance of bringing the CO in Mexico and let him know in a very, let's say, how can I say, very diplomatic way that there is insecurity in here, but at the end there is a way to deal with. So there's a full protocol to let them know how the things work here. And yeah, it was very interesting to let them know that.
Fascinating. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much for participating in this discussion. So the date of the HSBC New York event will be December 12th. That's 12/12. And it will, on New York time, it will start with an arrival reception at 9:30, and then at between 10 and 10:45, myself and my partner at HSBC will talk about important things and introduce people from the bank and what their function is, and also I will take the mic and walk around the room, and everyone gets to introduce themselves. And then we will have our opening keynote, which I cannot announce at this moment, but will very soon. And then we're going to have a workshop. Then we'll break for lunch, and then we have a closing session, which will be a 90-minute session of audience-oriented discussions. And this very specific topic of psychological safety and the psychological contract that is developed between the company and the employees. And the concept is to drive towards a measurable ROI for the company, equally for the employee and family. And it's not done so easily, is it, Christian?
Nope, it's not. It is not easily measurable. That's already where it starts. And the more you talk to mobility people about ROI, the more you learn that there's a variety of answers as to how to measure it, or if it indeed can be measured at all.
Interesting, isn't it? So anyway, we're going to have a New York-oriented discussion. You can imagine all the egos and and strengths, but I've been there, done that. My first New York meeting was in 1991, and at that time, my major partner, was the accounting firm KPMG, and they hosted us in their offices on Park Avenue. So it was nice and interesting. When we come into New York for this event on 12/12, that evening is the holiday party that KPMG is going to host. So it'd be like going home. It's really going to be an interesting time. So thank you for being on Global TV Talk Show. I will try to process this show during the day today and get it sent to you by the end of the day. hopefully.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thank
Ed.
you.
Thank you.
Nice
Nice
meeting you all.
meeting
Thank
you,
you.
Andrew. Thanks,
Likewise.
Rigo.
Thank you
You
so
guys.
much.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks.